Now, as a gamer, I've seen many weird things in the gaming community. However, one of the weirdest things I've been seeing as of lately are conspiracy theories and game crash theories. Now, if you don't know what these are, let me just explain them to you. Now, the main thing I'm going to talk about here are the game crash theories, rumors, and conspiracies. Now, if you're not aware, basically in 1983, in North America, there was a video game crash when stuff happened such as crappy games flooding the market, and well, Atari ended up losing a ton of money. There were some other factors that led to this though. For example, one factor was the fact that with the 2600 you did not have to pay Atari any royalties whatsoever when you published a game for that system. But here's something many people don't realize. What didn't fail was the computer industry. As keep in mind, you had these computers that not only could be programmed by the end user in languages such as BASIC, but you also had them being able to do stuff such as play games that could be stored to floppy disks, tapes, easily duplicated because after all, you could make copies of tapes real easily, along with games that also came on cartridges. And even in America, where the gaming crash happened, you had the Apple II line, you had the Atari 400 and 800 line, you had the Commodore 64, you had the TI-99 4A, and you had various other computers too. And let's not forget the whole PC line that came out in the 80s, but then later on would end up becoming the standard that computers today are based off of, in some way. And let's not forget that computers have always been more powerful than consoles. Even in the early 80s, you had stuff such as the Atari 400 and 800 coming out in the late 70s and being vastly more powerful than the 2600. You had the Amiga, which was originally going to be a next-gen game console, being repurposed into a successful computer line. And then you also had the Atari ST line, which Atari made instead of, say, focusing on game consoles after the crash. And computers were also relatively popular in Europe, too, and Nintendo never even had a market presence there. But enough with the myth-busting. Let's get to some facts. Now, it's no coincidence these have all been popping up in the last year or two. I mean, keep in mind, with the Nintendo Wii U failing, it was basically the first next-gen system, and it was a total flop. And many people were thinking that, oh, the Xbox One and PS4 are going to fail too because the Wii sold the most last gen, of course, forgetting that the Wii was, well, the Guitar Hero of gaming consoles, as in it was a quick fad. But in the end, what happened was the Xbox One and PS4 came out and have been selling a ton of consoles. I mean, sure, there's the whole Xbox One DRM hysteria, even though Steam did the same thing, and even though Microsoft reversed their policies. But look now, the Xbox One has sold, this month, it sold more than the PS4 did. And the PS4's been selling a ton of systems too, so keep in mind, the gaming consoles themselves aren't selling like crap. In fact, tons of people are buying the ones that don't have the Nintendo logo on it. The handheld market, on the other hand, is kind of failing, but it's easy to see why. The Vita has no games, the 3DS still has the same kiddie console image it did years ago, and well, there are more powerful cell phones. There are cell phones with fast quad-core CPUs, like some of them even about at 2 gigahertz even. Yeah, I've seen cell phones and tablets with CPUs that fast. There are cell phones with octa-core CPUs. I mean, sure, not all of them are the most powerful, but then you've got Qualcomm now making octa-core CPUs. And I'm not just talking about the ARM big little architecture either, which is just a fake quad-core. And well, the Vita only has about as much memory as a cheap prepaid smartphone, and the 3DS has about as much power as a cheap smartphone from 2011. Yeah, they're not that powerful. And considering how the 3DS and Vita keep getting snubbed by Western developers in favor of cell phone ports, I wouldn't be surprised if the handheld market just ceases to exist. The console market, though, is showing no signs of slowing down, considering how the Xbox One and PS4 are having ridiculous sales. So now that these two systems are having high sales, the whole conspiracy theories have switched to broken games killing the industry, which sounds more likely until you realize the past. Many broken games have come out on the PC, but you know what's worse than a broken game coming out? A broken game that never gets fixed. A game with slowdown and frame rate issues that never gets a patch to improve it. Let's be honest here. A buggy game can be a bad thing, but at least now, many developers are trying to patch them. And then I've played games like Quake 4 which have graphical glitches in them. I mean, they've never even received a single patch, so if you put it in your 360, even if you're connected to live, you'll still see these today. In fact, they even reprinted this game with no bug fixes whatsoever. They really did. And did I mention the frame rate is pretty horrible too? I mean, even if you're just looking around, the frame rate will drop. Even when you're in a cutscene, the frame rate and graphics will be an absolute joke. I mean, you can't even make this up. This is a 360 game. And let's not forget, Nintendo has released quite a few buggy games that either they couldn't patch, or that they never bothered to patch, such as Skyward Sword, such as Super Smash Bros. Brawl, such as Pokemon X and Y with its piss-poor frame rate. Games such as, Nintendo's released some buggy games before, and they've either not fixed them, or they've barely fixed them. And that's the thing. Releasing a buggy game and not fixing it is just as bad as releasing a buggy game. In fact, it's much worse because at least later on down the line, the game will have no fixes whatsoever, and if somebody buys it on sale thinking, hey, this might be a half-decent game, I mean, it might have had the bugs fixed. No, it won't. And there have been buggy games released in the past too. For example, I heard that Unreal, when it first came out, had some glitches and bugs, making the online, like, unplayable. Daikatana, that's a classic example of a buggy game. And I heard that Bethesda games, even in the 90s, they were making some buggy games too. I mean, honestly, I'm tired of playing games that have online modes with servers getting nailed or online modes that don't work. But you know what I'm also tired of? I'm also tired of games that come out and never get patched. In fact, I can even name a modern example of this: Sonic Boom, Rise of Lyric. But I think that's all that needs to be said. So let's get back to what I was talking about with the whole conspiracy stuff and game crash theories. But now that I've already talked about buggy games, and now that I've told you that in the past there have been buggy games and that yes, games can be patched, let's talk about my next point. I honestly don't think the people who come up with these theories even know what they're saying. It's like they want all these people to be laid off. It's like they don't seem to think through what they're saying. Because if you take a look at it, what these people want is for all these companies to go out of business. Why? Just because they don't make the same exact kind of games they want. Because let's be honest here, gaming has a lot of games in it. And yet at the same time, the people who are coming up with these crash conspiracy theories want to play exactly the same few kinds of games. I've seen people say there are too many first-person shooters when, even in the 90s, even in the 2000s, there were already tons of first-person shooters. Maybe not on console, but on PC, there were loads of them. I'm seeing people complain about too many multiplayer games when not only are there still plenty of single-player games, but even in the 90s and 2000s, there were plenty of multiplayer-centric games too. Does anybody remember Quake 3 Arena, or the Unreal Tournament series, or Battlefield 1942 and the like? Because honestly, all I see here with these conspiracy theories and people saying all sorts of crazy stuff such as how they want pretty much every company that isn't the one they like to go out of business, because nearly all these game crash theories have a few companies surviving the crash. And you know what companies these are? The companies these people fanboy over. Because these theories have no basis in reality, and when you look at it and break them down, they're just fanboy fantasies. And some of them even go all the way and say that some company has a conspiracy against their favorite company. I've actually seen that before. I've seen people try to say that all these companies are conspiring against their favorite company, not realizing that 1, businesses do not work on playground rules, and 2, that's illegal and would cause a lawsuit from the FTC or other similar groups. Nintendo actually did that in the 90s and 80s, or early 90s at least, and you know what? They got sued for doing various stuff like that, such as price fixing their games, so nobody could sell it even $1 lower. And if Nintendo had their way, there wouldn't be Steam sales or sales on games from companies like Microsoft, Sony, in your local game store, because Nintendo did not allow that until they got sued. So let me just end this video by saying this. Broken games can be fixed. Of course they shouldn't be broken in the first place, but still, they can be fixed. And you know what's worse than never having a broken game fixed? Having a broken game come out and staying broken. And not only that, but all these game crash theories are, well, conspiracies. As after all, most of these companies know that if they release a buggy game, they're going to learn from it from the next one. And if they don't learn from it, they go out of business. And not the industry collapsing, because that's what happens. This has happened before with other companies that have gone out of business for making crappy games, and yet the whole industry has not collapsed. That's all I have to say, because these theories are just fanboy fantasies. That's all I have to say. Thanks for watching, subscribe for more.